Welcome to the Advanced Facebook Advertising course. This is number 4 of 5, and today we'll be going through Module 1. So for the first module, we'll be going through Pixel Perfect Custom Audiences, how to utilize customer insights for advanced Facebook remarketing strategies. We'll be going through creating custom audiences with Facebook pixel tracking, going after new prospects and new markets, understanding what lookalike audiences are and using them as a way to grow our business, and analyzing frequency caps and audience overlaps. So Module 1, Pixel Perfect Custom Audiences. So first off, this is a course that builds off of the prerequisite course and builds on the basic principles of Facebook Business Manager. We'll be going through targeted posts and page reach. We'll be looking at the advanced techniques and opportunities available with Facebook and Instagram advertising to hopefully boost your business. So before we get started, it's highly recommended that you have access to both Google Analytics and Facebook Business Manager. If you do not, we'll have an exercise sheet coming up really quick about how to get Facebook Business Manager. Google Analytics is a little bit tougher to get, so I'd highly recommend going into Google Analytics and going through their step-by-step. We'll be using both of these throughout the course, so please ensure that you have access to both of these. So here's our first exercise. If you do not have a Facebook Business Manager account, please follow these steps. It is super easy. They have made a good effort to make it as easy as possible. Essentially, all you have to do is log in, and as soon as you have access to your primary Facebook page, when you have access to that, you can basically just throw it into the Business Manager and it creates it right away. It is pretty easy and streamlined. So first we'll be going into audience insights. Before we create an ad campaign, we really need to figure out who our audience is and what they're interested in. This is the most important step to get to, is who are we trying to target? So the first place that I like to go is a very high level. This is where you get a lot of organic data from, and it's the Facebook Insights tab. So if you're on your Facebook page and you go to the settings, you will see a tab called Insights. From here, we can go through the list and we can see all of the available tabs and information that we have available to us. So the first one I want to go through is the overview. You can see right here, for instance, we have the overview. We have what's going on with our page, all the actions that are being taken place, all the page views that are happening. We can go into the post and we can see what type of post people are liking the most. But this really doesn't give us a good depth insight into who our actual audience is and what they're doing, what they like, and other pages that they potentially like. This is where I like to go into the Audience Insights tab. So Audience Insights is only available once you have a Facebook Business Manager account. So this is why it's highly recommended to have one of these. If you have a Facebook business page and you're boosting posts that way, it's good. You just don't get to unlock all the tools that are available to you as an advertiser. So the Facebook Insights tab will give us a good overall look into how our page is doing, as well as give us that in-depth audience information that we like to look at. So once you enter into the Facebook Insights, Audience Insights tab, it'll ask you two things, or it'll ask you one thing to give you two options. You can look into the data on everyone that's on Facebook itself. This will kind of give you a good lay of the land, what the landscape is. If you have anyone that comes up to you that's asking about Gen Z advertising, this will allow us to basically look into all the audiences on here, see what that overall reach is, and see if it's viable to go after them or not. We want to see what our current page is doing so we can target these people and hopefully emphasize and amplify these people. We want to go into the people connected to our page. It is important to note that you have to be actively advertising on Facebook, and you have to have actual page likes. So what I mean by this is we cannot create a Facebook page right now, generate 20 page likes and not advertise, and they won't give us this data. We need to be advertising and we need to have a certain number of page likes. The problem I find with Facebook is that they do not give us an overall number. They basically say as long as the data, or as long as this overall page likes and you advertising generates enough data for us to provide this information to you. I have seen some people with 100 page likes that do not have access to the people connected to your page. I have seen people who have 110 page likes, for instance, but are actively advertising, and they do get access to this. So it is a little tricky there. My best bet is once you start advertising, they do unlock this feature for you. So starting off, I do highly recommend to select the country or the city that you want to target in, because if we choose everyone that's on Facebook right now and we just narrow it down by the country, it might be a broad overall view. We really want to nail it down into who we are and what city we want to advertise in, so we can see what those people are liking as far as page likes go, the top categories of information that they're liking, as well as the overall demographic information. So if we look into Calgary, we can see that we can see demographic info as well as page likes that might offer marketing opportunities for us. You can see here we have Calgary put in, and you can see right down here, these are the top page likes that people are liking, as well as our page. So what I mean by this is that, let's say that we're targeting people that like social school. We can see that the #1 top category is Bow Valley Ranch Restaurant, as well as Market Calgary. What this tells me is that no, we cannot target these people directly. We cannot target, hey, people that are interested in Market Calgary, but we can try and get them to like our content and our ads by either going up to Market Calgary, asking if we can take some images in there. Maybe we might want to create an event that's going out to Market Calgary, so on and so forth. Maybe they want a partnership up if there's a viable opportunity there. From there, if we look at the people connected to our page, we can also get a wide depth of information and details about their demographics, interests, and activity on Facebook. So once we plug in the social school, which is our page, we can start seeing that, hey, we can see that we're really under indexing on females that are 18 to 24, but we start over indexing on the older demographics. So the 35 to 44, 45 to 54, we're over indexing compared to compared to the rest. We can see that we're not getting anyone that's 55 or above. So what this tells me, for instance, is that once we start advertising on Facebook, we should exclude anyone that's 55 or above. We might also want to look into if we want to exclude the 18 to 24 age range as well. Just because we're over indexing, it shows that this audience isn't really geared up to our Facebook page. Or do they don't find the content that's relevant on our page to be that engaging for them to like our page. What this tells us is that if we want to get after the 18 to 24, maybe we want to investigate on creating content that these people would like and they would find a better affinity for. Understanding our audience is vital to creating the effective targeting ads. Using these audience insights can help us create the custom audiences made up of people who are likely interested in our brand. Some of these things can really spark an opportunity and an idea. So a good example that I can think of is that I work on a banking client and they really wanted to reach the millennial audiences. Well, what we found is that once we went into the audience insights, we found that the #1 page like that the females were liking was Starbucks and all these local coffee shops. Well, all of a sudden, we had the idea to make all of our content and all of our creative that was targeting these younger audiences to do with talking about coffee, talking about how we can save you and get your money's worth so you can go out and buy the coffee, so on and so forth. Hey, you want to invest? Investing can be just as much as a cup of coffee every morning. That way we get something that they like and we can intersect it and we can put our ad out there that connects these interests for those people together. We can also use these insights to look at different ways to reach our audience, and this is a prime example of one. We can also see that if we have a large number of overlapping users with local organizations, and this is a great way, as I mentioned before, to look into sponsorships or other ways to connect and create more engagement with these interested consumers. This can be so much as just going into that shop, if we see local shops, and providing just our business cards or a flyer onto their storefront, onto their counter, whatever is available and whatever you can think of. This really can connect the two brands together, even if it doesn't make total sense, you know, banking and coffee, but at least the two, the user can connect the two together and make those brands stronger in their minds as well as their opinions. So for our first exercise, we'll go in and we want to identify your current audience. Look into the audience insights and basically grab out these pieces of information. Look at who your top ages are and the top genders. Is there one that maybe is skewing below that you want to target? Think of ways that you might want to target those people as well. Same with the age of children. Maybe we want to see how old, the life cycle of these parents. Some of my clients, for instance, they want to target the moms and the dads of people that want to go to school, for instance, or they want to provide a service that maybe that student doesn't want to look at. Maybe we want to target those parents and identify the age of those children, so we can kind of target the parents who can tell the kids to either go back to school, get this program or this education or the service that we're offering. Same with occupation. Maybe we can see what the top occupation job titles, job industries that are also liking our page. Maybe there's a correlation there, and maybe there's a pattern that we can try and take advantage of and find the most efficient advertising techniques and targeting. So once we understand our current audience insights, we can move on to targeting new prospects and broadening our Facebook reach. The best way to do this is going into creating audiences. So if you're in your Facebook Business Manager, go into the tab go into Business Settings and go to the Audience tab. Once you're there, you'll see an option that you can create an audience. Once you click on that Create Audience, this tab will show up. We have 3 different options we can do. We can create a custom audience, we can create a lookalike audience, or we can create a saved audience. Custom audience is a type of audience that allows us to create based upon our existing customers or people who've shown interest in our business. The custom audiences can be created from people who have interacted with us through properties that we own, such as an app that we might have, our Facebook or our Instagram pages, or perhaps most valuable is our website. If people are coming to our website and then they're leaving, but they're not buying, we want to make sure we can target those people again and keep serving them ads to hopefully get them down the funnel to buy it. We'll be talking about the funnel in module 3, I believe. So just stick with me until then. So with Facebook ads, we are often trying to push customers onto our website. So creating a custom audience based on people who have already visited our site can be the most valuable in terms of remarketing and creating repeated customers. These people already know who we are or have some form of idea who we are, compared to a very cold audience who's never been to our website at all. We want to make sure we're remarketing to the people who matter most to us and that are more likely to get down the funnel. So using a Facebook pixel is the best way to track what happens on our website. This is the best way for us to also create these website custom audiences as well to really bolster our remarketing efforts. So what is the Facebook pixel? And I get a lot of questions about this. The Facebook pixel essentially is a little piece of code that's installed onto our website that can track customer data for us. It also allows us to track what people are clicking on so that we can verify, oh, people want to go to the Facebook course instead of the SEO course, for instance, so on and so forth. It can also track how long you've been on the website and how often you visit. So maybe we want to target someone who's visiting 5 times in 1 week. That tells me that they're really down funnel, they're ready to buy at any time. So the benefits of using the Facebook pixel. We have the ability to track conversions. We can remarket to our users. We can also create lookalike audiences for prospecting. And this will allow us in the end to run effective ads and run the most effective ads we can possibly run. So what the Facebook pixel looks like is essentially this. We can see that we have the Facebook pixel and we have the base code. From there, we also have to add in standard event codes as well. Standard event codes allow us to know, hey, this person's clicking on add to cart, for instance, to buy now, or possibly has actually purchased. So we might want to exclude those for right now and maybe remarket them in a week, a month, whatever the life cycle of your product is. So the base code should be placed on every page of your website. It is very, very important to know that on every single page that on every page on your website, the pixel should be placed. This allows us to really track the user from end to end. If you, for instance, don't track your homepage and a user goes to the homepage, we've lost them now. Now that they've entered our ad, they go to your website, your landing page, they click on the home page, all of a sudden we've lost them, then they convert and they end up buying something. We'll have no idea where that came from because the pixel lost them in that whole website session. The standard event code also allows us to place actions on pages on our site. So for instance, shopping, purchasing page, anything like that, a registration. We really want to make sure that the standard event is there so we can track what's going on the website and what these users are doing. So installing the Facebook pixel, really to set up the Facebook pixel, to set up the Facebook pixel, the first step is to create the pixel and name it. You want to name it to something that's relevant. So for instance, you might want to name it to something on your website or the domain that you're going on. If you have multiple domains, it is highly important to make sure that you name the pixel what the domain is so you don't get confused. There is other ways that you can install the pixel as well. That is more, so once you kind of create that and you name it, you also will now be able to install the pixel. It'll give you 3 options of what we can do. We can use an integration, we can manually install the code ourselves, or we can email the instructions to a developer. If you have a developer, I highly recommend that you send the instructions over to them. What I prefer to do is I actually manually click on manually install the code myself. I'll grab all the code and I'll put it into a notepad. What this allows me to do is it allows me to attach it personally to the email and send it over. I find that if we ever use the email instructions to a developer, I find that since it's coming through Facebook.com or FacebookBusiness.com type of email, I find that a lot of the times, more often than not, it actually ends up going into the spam or the junk mail folder. So I do highly recommend to manually install it. Sorry, click on manually install, download the code, and send it over to the developer. If you are using integrations like BigCommerce, GTM, Google Tag Manager, that is, Magento, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, WooCommerce, there's so much more in there. There's Eventbrite, there's Ticketmaster, for instance, if you're using any of those platforms. What this allows us to do is we can simply select to go onto the user integration or tag manager, and it will allow us to seamlessly install the code itself without any actual coding involved or so on and so forth. For instance, I can personally speak to Google Tag Manager because that is the one I use the most myself. And what this does is essentially I just log into the Google Tag Manager and the Facebook pixel automatically installs it onto the right property for us. It is super easy, super simple, and super efficient. So here's a look of what the pixel looks like. So first, the top one that I keep forgetting to remind people, and I should remind clients more and more, is that we really want to make sure that the pixel is on the header of the website. So where the head and then the slash head goes, the slash head means that the header is done. You want to make sure it's above this. Anywhere in the head is very important for us. What this means is that it will be one of the pixels that loads first for us. Whereas if we put into the footer, for instance, or in the body, this means that all the images and video on your website are going to load first before the pixel ever loads. So if you have a big video, for instance, on your homepage, and that has to load before the pixel gets loaded, you'll see that a lot of the data and a lot of the users in your website aren't actually going to be tracked because usually people are clicking through websites or clicking it through pages faster than like a full website can load. In most cases, some of these websites aren't the most speedy and the most efficient in terms of time. So you really want to make sure it's in the head so that the pixel gets loaded first. We really want to make sure we're tracking as much as possible. You also see that this is what the full pixel code will look like. And the biggest thing that differentiates your code from everyone else's is simply just this pixel ID right here. The pixel ID is the only thing that changes from user to user. You will also see that there is a use advanced matching option. I do highly recommend you to click on this. What this does is that if people are entering their emails or information onto your website, so if you're ever buying, or if people are buying on your website, people are filling out forms or something like that, it'll actually grab their information like that. So their first name, last name, whatever your lead gen form looks like, and it'll essentially capture that information and send it through to the pixel, and it'll correlate the Facebook profiles as well as the information on your website to better match all of the information that's going on. A prime example of when this would matter most is a home buyer, for instance. If we're trying to sell homes to someone, it's a big purchase. They might see our first Facebook ad on their phone and their mobile device. And then later in the day, they might go home, talk to the full family. Hey, this house might be what we want to do. We should sign up to go for a show home tour. Well, if he or she uses their same name as what they clicked on that Facebook ad with, it'll still be able to correlate that, hey, this person saw our ad earlier in the day and then later came back directly and converted. That is probably more than likely our conversion, so it can match that for us. Once you have it all installed, or your developer says it's installed, you will see an option to send test traffic. And what this does is it sends a few bots, Facebook bots, friendly bots, not bad ones, over to your website to make sure that we can see what's going on, as well as we should see this last received go to 1 minute ago where the bots came in. This is super helpful for a new website or a new landing page that doesn't get much traffic. And we really want to see if it's working right now compared to waiting 24 hours. If we're installing the pixel on WordPress, it is super simple. I actually really like that Squarespace and WordPress are a type of websites that have a super easy integration with this. Simply just go into the settings, and then from there will be insert headers and footers, and we can apply the pixel right from there. Simply just copy and paste the full pixel in, and right then just click save, and all of a sudden your pixel will be tracking every single page view. Once we have this installed and we've been running ads, or we've been running organic, we don't have to run ads right away. The pixel will pick up all data from all data sources: Facebook, Google Organic, Google Direct, your Google Ads, any other advertising you have put in place. It'll still track them. It tracks anyone on the website. So you should see all this data gathering. This will show you the interactions your customers have had and show some of the key metrics from specified timeframes. We can also see we can also create custom audiences based on these, and we can use the pixel data to drive these custom audiences for us. If we see that we have a lot of add to carts, for instance, but not a lot of purchases, maybe we want to create a custom audience specific to add to carts, and we can remarket to try and get these people to start purchasing, and hopefully we can get that purchase number up a bit more. So lookalike audiences. Lookalike audiences is a really good way to reach new people who are likely interested in our business, because they're similar to our best existing audiences, customers or fans, for instance. And we really want to just make sure that they're aware of who we are. The best way I can explain lookalike audiences is that it essentially grabs demographic and behavior information from people. So for instance, I would be in the 25 to 34 age range. I'm a male. I really like Jeeps, camping, hiking, things like that. And it will essentially grab people that are similar to me. So 25 to 34, also likes hiking, also likes biking and climbing and camping, so on and so forth. But they don't know who our brand is yet. So because we have a lot of people like me, for instance, that are interested in our brand, we can target a lookalike and try and get after them. I like to call this a warm audience because they don't know who we are yet, but according to the data, they should really like our brand. So that's very important. They might have more affinity compared to just a colder audience. So we can create a lookalike audience by choosing a source audience and then identifying the common interests in similar demographic groups. Then we look for people or are similar, like a lookalike, and we can change, and then we go after those people. We can change the size of an audience lookalike. Basically, what it does is that it allows us to grab the source audience, and then it'll tell us what country we want to make a lookalike off of, And then it'll ask us if we want to create that lookalike at 1% of the country all the way up to 10% of the country. It's better for us and more efficient for us to get down to that 1 to 3% of the audience, or sorry, of the country. I wouldn't advertise, or I wouldn't like to go any further than that, because 10%, for instance, is 1 in 10 of us. That's not as lookalike and as efficient compared to that 1 to 3%. If we have the data, I do like to stick to the 1%, which is going to be the more specific to us. Don't be afraid that it's country size, because all it's trying to do is, with the GDPR issues and all that data going on, they need to select country size. Oh, sorry, excuse me. They need to select country size in order to get a big enough audience group for us. Even if we're not targeting all of Canada or all of the US, for instance, it doesn't matter. We put it into the audience. Then when we start creating targeted ads, for instance, then we put the city that we want to target these lookalike users in. So then that way we can specify what city we want to target. With lookalike audiences, I do find that sometimes it's an issue if we're trying to target a very rural area or somewhere that there's no city at all, but it might be, for instance, a big camping area, a big woods area. If there's not a lot of towns or cities, for instance, the lookalike audience might not be the best for us. A smaller audience is also likely to have more higher quality similarities for us. Whereas the 10% audience, for instance, it's really just trying to grab and reach to basically get those people in there. So our 1%, for instance, might be people who directly like Starbucks, but once we get into that 10% range, it might be going after people like, oh, this person likes coffee, for instance. It might not be Starbucks, but they might like coffee. Maybe we should target those people. The quality goes down in those similarities. So that's very important to know. So when we're creating lookalike audiences, Facebook will attempt to segment your audience based upon the interests and demographics. This is very important to know, because this is basically what we want it to target. We want it to target those people. We want it to target the same age range. We don't want to make a lookalike audience and all of a sudden it's going after 65-year-olds when we want it to go after the 25 to 34. I also do, please forgive me, I did skip ahead. We can see here, this is a better breakdown. So once we go into the source, this is people that like our page. Then you have your country, for instance, and then we can go from there. So we can see that our 1%, for instance, the audience is already at 234,000 people, 235,000 if we want to round up. Once we go up all the way to the 10%, for instance, this will go up to probably 2.3 million, for instance, somewhere around there, which isn't really the most efficient for us. We do want to make sure that that number of the audience size is lower, as low as possible, while remaining in that sweet spot. If we see that this goes below 100,000, for instance, we might be a little weary, because that means that once we start targeting someone in a specific city, let's say it's Calgary or Toronto, that lookalike audience might go right down, and it might not be enough for us to have efficient results. If we want to create more accurate lookalike audiences, we need to get more information from people. We want to make sure that it's people, we want to make sure we can get the data of people who are visiting our website. We want to make sure that, you know, for instance, we can get people who are adding to carts, subscribing, registering, getting in touch, for instance. So we can really get it through there. If we go into Google Analytics, we can get a more thorough idea of what's going on in the user journey, and we can kind of see what people are doing in order to interact with our company, our business, or our website. So our website is generally the final stop on a user's journey, and it's the place where we might want to send them. This allows us to send them there to buy, subscribe, register, get in touch, so on and so forth. So having a thorough understanding of how, why, when, and how, when they got there is really integral in the successful digital marketing campaigns. And this can really help us create more accurate audiences. So frequency capping. Frequency capping is important to go after. Sorry, not go after, but to be aware about and to be diligent in making sure that you're minimizing these or maximizing these, depending on your strategy, to get the best results possible. So Facebook has built-in frequency caps depending on the campaign objective to make sure that our users aren't being spammed by advertisers. What this means is that the newsfeed, for instance, an ad set in your campaign is your audience level. On the newsfeed level, it will only serve a user 2 times in a row. This doesn't mean that, for instance, they can scroll down and scroll back up. They'll see it a 3rd time. I'm just talking about refreshing the feed. Once you refresh the feed, the ad should refresh. And if someone's already seen your ad twice, in theory, they shouldn't see it again. This isn't always always the outcome. A prime example of this, we can have multiple audiences where there's an overlap. That way they could be in a few ad sets, for instance, or a few campaigns of ours, so on and so forth. They could have also seen it somewhere else, like the audience network, and then they came onto the newsfeed and then they're seeing it again. Something that's important to know is that when you're looking into the frequency column in your metrics, the frequency is the average frequency. It's not a hard and fast number. So if it shows that your average frequency for the month is 4, that means some users could have seen it 1 time, while some other users could have seen it 10. It just means on average, the average frequency was 4 out of the whole month. So setting frequency caps in certain campaigns, like engagement campaigns, reach campaigns, and video view campaigns, for instance, will really allow us to adjust the number of times, on average, a person will be shown your ads within a set period of time. Frequency caps can really impact on how many people will be able to reach and how frequently we'll be able to reach. So for instance, if we want to target people twice in a day, for instance, our reach will in theory drop in half because we want to target the same number, we want to target half the people, hitting them twice compared to 1 person all the time, where we're going to hit them 1 time each, if that makes sense to you. So you can set your frequency cap up so that either you have a higher reach, this means a lower frequency cap, so we're getting after more people, or we have a higher frequency. So the reach is lower, but we're hitting those people more than once. I personally end up doing more of the higher frequency. In a day, for instance, I want to hit people 2 or 3 times to make sure that our message is resonating throughout, as well as maybe the first time we serve them an ad, it might not be the best time of day. Let's say they're in a meeting, they quickly searched on Facebook for 2 seconds because the presenter had to leave for 2 minutes. If they see a home ad or a car ad, for instance, they might not want to buy or investigate right away, but maybe they want that ad to be served up at a better time, let's say after 5 o'clock once they're done working, and then they can actually click in and go through it and spend their time on it compared to being rushed. If you care about reaching the maximum number of people out there, choose a lower frequency cap of about 1 to 2 impressions a week. If you care about reaching a smaller group of people more frequently, choose that higher frequency cap to really get that message into their through their eyeballs and into their brain. If you are a larger brand with a high volume of market share and a high brand awareness, it is better to focus on reaching more people, but less frequently. Whereas smaller brands that lack general brand awareness, it is more worth it to focus more on reaching fewer people, getting after that core audience of who we think is going to be the most worthy or the most efficient to get for us, and really focus on maximizing that awareness in that core audience. So I did briefly talk about this, but audience overlap is a thing. Audience overlap essentially means that we have 2 audiences that we want to target. Let's say it's 18 to 24 educated, 18 to 24 people that have some sort of education, so college or high school, so on and so forth. And then our second audience is 18 to 24-year-old users that are on, Apple phones. While there is going to be a strong correlation between people that have graduated or have some form of education and people that are using Apple phones, I'd highly, in my brain, I would think that it's going to be about a 70% overlap, because there is Androids and so on and so forth. But the audience overlap is going to be huge in those 2 audiences. And essentially, we're going to be serving the same ads to people. Essentially, we're going to be segmenting our performance and creating less efficiency for us. We can also be competing with ourselves. So having overlapping audiences is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can lead to poor delivery of our ad sets, as well as the poor delivery of making sure that message hits the right people at the right time. So a good example of this is if we're talking about a computer store with a Windows, an Apple audience and a Windows audience, we want to have separate ad sets. As we know, is some people that have Apple phones, for instance, will also have Apple computers. But then the same thing could happen is people with Apple phones could have Windows computers. So there is an overlap that can happen. The best way to do this is the best way to see what the overlap would be is to create saved audiences in the audiences tab. So for instance, this one is just people that like Apples. This one's just people that are interested in Windows. Select the two audiences and go into actions, and you'll see a show audience overlap. Once we click on this bar will show. So the first one's going to be the first audience that we selected, and the second one's going to be the second audience that we selected. So for instance, let's just say that this one is Windows and this one is Apple. We can see that, yes, while this one has 2 million, this one has 155, the overlap within our existing audience of Apple is 1.5 million. So this means that only 500,000 people in this Apple audience will actually be new users that we're targeting. Overall, our audience overlap is actually 75%, which is way too big. This is going to be very inefficient for us, especially if we're trying to deliver a picture perfect message to that audience and get the most efficient results possible. So how do we fix audience overlap? Well, there's two ways we can do this. We can consolidate our overlapping audiences. We can take the Apple's audience and the Windows audience and combine them together, or we can refine our targeting. Maybe we want to look into the specific OS devices instead of, just, oh, they're interested in Apple. We want to make sure that their OS for their phone is showing Apple instead. This way we can really get down and narrow into these audiences and make sure that we're not paying to basically, make sure that we're paying to actually reach the correct audience, I guess the best way to put it. So if you notice that there's a huge overlap between both ad sets, you can edit either audience. So select by clicking the checkbox for which audience you'd like to edit. Click on the Actions tab and choose Edit. From there, we can scroll down to exclude people and change the parameters of our audience so that it is different from other people from the other ad that it's competing with. And hopefully this will allow us to minimize our overlap as much as possible. That is it for Module 1, and we'll continue with Module 2.